Introduction to Elementary Statistics. Data collection. What is statistics? Statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, summarizing, and analyzing information to draw conclusions or answer questions. Statistics also addresses the issue of how confident one can be in any conclusions that are reached. Data is the information collected. Data comes in many forms. It can be numbers, such as test grades. It can be descriptive, such as eye color or nationality. Statistics strives to describe data that is collected and often uses that data to draw conclusions or predict things. Using data to predict is like making an educated guess. One really good example of when the educated guess was wrong is what happened to the U.S. economy in 2009. Nearly every major decision, political, economic, educational, insurance, advertising, is made using statistics. Every citizen should have at least a basic understanding of the process and whether it is being correctly applied or not. Ever wonder why one year the media is telling you to do one thing and then they change to something else? One example is butter or margarine. In the 1970s, everyone was supposed to switch to margarine because of the cholesterol and heart disease issue. Now we are back to butter because margarine may not be so good after all. As you learn about the methods of statistics, you will be able to decide for yourself whether the media's reports should be believed or not. The purpose of this class is not to make you a doer of statistics, but instead it is to make you a good consumer of statistics. If you want to learn to do the number crunching with statistics, we have Math 241 for that. In 1954, Darrell Huff wrote a book entitled How to Lie with Statistics. Pulling the wool over the uneducated public's eye with questionable statistics is not a new phenomenon. There are two main areas of statistics: descriptive and inferential. We'll look at descriptive statistics first. Descriptive statistics deals with how to organize data and describe some general characteristics about it. Inferential statistics is about using data from a sample to make predictions about a larger group. We will cover this during the last part of the course. The entire group of individuals to be studied is called a population, so we need to get some terms straight. An individual is a person or object that is a member of the population being studied. A sample is a subset of the population that is being studied. Most things are studied using samples because the population is too big to deal with. So an example would be the population would be all the people on this planet. A sample would be just a select group of those people. And an individual would be one person. Getting a good sample. Usually the population is too big to get information from every member, so we use a smaller subset of the population, a sample, instead. We have to be careful how we pick the sample so that it will represent the whole population. There are several ways to get a good sample, which we will discuss later. A problem with much bad statistics is that the sample used is not representative of the population about which predictions are being made. Here's some more terms. A parameter is a numerical summary of a population. A statistic is a numerical summary based on a sample. So you might have an average. We're all familiar with a mean or an average. If we got that mean from the entire population, we would call it a parameter, but if we got it from just a sample of the population, then we call it a statistic. Suppose the percentage of all students on your campus who have a job is 84.9%. This value represents a parameter because it is a numerical summary of a population. Suppose a sample of 250 students is obtained, and from this sample we find that 86.3% have a job. This value represents a statistic because it is a numerical summary based on a sample. So you can keep those straight with the P's, parameter population, and statistic sample both start with an S. It can be confusing. Getting the terms correct can be a bit confusing because in the previous example the population was the student body in one community college, say Virginia Highlands Community College. An individual was any student at Virginia Highlands Community College. Another study might involve all of the community colleges in the state of Virginia. In that study, Virginia Highlands would be an individual and the population would be the set of 23 colleges that make up the Virginia Community College system. Some more terms. Variables are the characteristics of the individuals within the population. A key point is that variables vary. That's how they got their name. Consider the variable that represents height. If all individuals had the same height, then obtaining the height of one individual would be sufficient in knowing the heights of all the individuals. Of course, that's not the case. As researchers, we wish to identify the factors that influence variability. Here's another example. This one deals with shoe size. Suppose we want to find the average shoe size of women in San Francisco. We go to Chinatown and we ask the first 100 women we see what their shoe size is. Why would the average shoe sizes for those people not represent the average shoe size of women in all of San Francisco? The variable we are studying in that case would be shoe size. The parameter is the average shoe size of women in San Francisco. We would have to find every woman in San Francisco and get their shoe size to find this number. So you can see why we use a lot of samples and not entire populations. The statistic is the average shoe size of our sample of 100 women. This is not a good sample because it does not represent the diversity of the population of San Francisco. Asian women tend to have small feet. The process of statistics involves several things. First, you have to identify the research objective. A researcher must determine the question or questions he or she wants answered. The question must be detailed so that it identifies the population that is to be studied and the questions that are to be answered. Then, after you decide what it is you want to know, you collect data needed to answer those questions. Gaining access to an entire population is often difficult and expensive. When conducting research, we typically look at a sample. The collection of data step is vital to the statistical process because if the data are not collected correctly, the conclusions drawn are meaningless. And you will learn that doesn't stop people from publishing them. Do not overlook the importance of appropriate data collection processes. The third thing you do after you get the data is to describe the data, which we're going to do with descriptive statistics. Obtaining descriptive statistics allows the researcher to give an overview of the data and can provide insight as to the type of statistical methods the researcher should use. Then perform inference, which means that you're going to apply what you learned about the sample to the entire population. So you're going to apply appropriate techniques to extend the results obtained from the sample to the population and report a level of reliability in the results. So to recap, you identify the research objective, you collect the data, you describe the data, and then draw inferences if it's appropriate based on the sample you used. Here's an illustration. Many studies evaluate batterer treatment programs, but there are few experiments designed to compare batterer treatment programs to non-therapeutic treatments, such as community service. Researchers designed an experiment in which 376 male criminal court defendants who were accused of assaulting their intimate female partners were randomly assigned into either a treatment group or a control group. The subjects in the treatment group entered a 40-hour batterer treatment program, while the subjects in the control group received 40 hours of community service. After 6 months, it was reported that 21% of the males in the control group had further battering incidents, so those were the ones that did the community service, while 10% of the males in the treatment group had further battering incidents. The researchers concluded that the treatment was effective in reducing repeat battering offenses. So let's go through the steps and see from our example what matches up with each step in the process. So step 1, identify the research objective. In this example, that would be to determine whether males accused of battering their intimate female partners that were assigned to a 40-hour batter treatment group are less likely to batter again compared to those who just got community service. Step 2, collect the information needed to answer the question. In this case, the researchers randomly divided the subjects into 2 groups. Group 1 participants received the 40-hour batterer treatment program, while the control group received 40 hours of community service. 6 months after the program ended, the percentage of males that battered their intimate female partner was determined. Organizing and summarizing the information. The demographic characteristics of the subjects in the experimental and control group were similar. After the 6-month treatment, 21% of the males in the control group had further battering incidents, while 10% of the males in the treatment group had further battering incidents. Step 4, drawing conclusions from the data. We extend the results of the 376 males in the study to all males who batter their intimate female partner. That is, males who batter their female partner and participate in a batter treatment program are less likely to batter again. Now take Module 1, Part 1, Assessment. The password is parameter in all lowercase. The test time is 120 minutes, but you may continue longer if needed. The time is irrelevant. Don't let that stress you out.